At leaAt Thanksgiving, my sister found out I had $12 million and my family insisted I hand it over, saying she needed it more. Have you ever wondered what happens when the people who are supposed to love you most can barely see you? Or what if your own family, the ones who raised you, became so entitled they actually demanded a piece of your success, even after years of dismissing you? I'm Sarah, and my life story is a wild ride of being invisible, building an empire in secret, and then watching it all explode in the most spectacular Thanksgiving meltdown you could ever imagine. Before I jump in, I just want to say my channel is growing, and it means the world to me that you're here. If you enjoy raw, honest stories, please hit that subscribe button. It's free, it helps me keep sharing, and it lets me know I'm not shouting into the void. Thank you. Now let's get into it. This is a story I've needed to get off my chest for years. I'm 38 now, and it's finally time. You know those families where one kid can do no wrong, basking in a golden glow, while the other is practically a ghost. Yeah, that was my life. For the first 8 years, things were normalish. I was an only child. My parents weren't exactly huggers, but they were there. Mom would help with homework. Dad would take me fishing sometimes. We weren't the Brady Bunch, but we were fine. Then, one night, everything changed. I still remember my Aunt Kelly showing up at 2 a.m., her face etched with worry, telling me to pack a suitcase. Mom was in the hospital. My sister, Rachel, was on her way, 2 months early. The next few weeks were a blur of hushed conversations and hospital visits. Rachel was tiny, frail, tangled in a spaghetti of tubes. I wasn't allowed to touch her, to get too close. That was the first time I felt it, an invisible wall forming between me and the rest of my family. When Rachel finally came home, our house transformed. It became a sterilized bubble. My mom became obsessed with germs. I'm talking industrial strength, disinfectant everywhere, hand sanitizer stations in every room, constant cleaning. The harsh smell of bleach still makes me anxious today. But here's what really messed me up. The moment I showed the slightest symptom of illness, I was whisked away, off to Grandma Marie's or Aunt Kelly's. A single sneeze? Pack your bags. A mild cough? You're off to Grandma's. At first, I thought it was a treat. Grandma Marie made the best cookies, and Aunt Kelly had a treasure trove of Nancy Drew books. But kids aren't stupid. Not really. After a while, you figure it out. You're not being sent on an adventure. You're being treated like a threat, like your very existence could damage your precious sister. I tried everything to get their attention in a good way. I brought home straight A's. Mom barely looked up from Rachel's latest doctor's appointment calendar. I won first prize at the science fair with a project on renewable energy. Dad just asked if I could store the display board in the garage because Rachel was allergic to cardboard dust. Is that even a thing? The real kick in the teeth came when I was 12. I'd spent months practicing bridge over troubled water on the piano for the school talent show. A little on the nose, I know. But on the night of the show, Rachel had a 99.1-degree fever. Guess who played to an empty audience? Meanwhile, 2 weeks later, the entire family, both sets of grandparents included, showed up for Rachel's 15-minute flute recital, where she massacred hot cross buns. Rachel learned how to work the system. Fast. By 7, her major health issues were long gone. But that didn't stop her. A headache? Must stay home from school. Feeling tired? Someone else should do her chores. Worried about a test? Mom would literally call the school for an extension. I retreated. My room became my sanctuary. Books on art history, antiques. Rachel claimed she was allergic to my lavender air freshener, so it was the one place she wouldn't go. Funny, isn't it? When she'd fake being sick, a part of me would feel relief. Then I'd be sent to Grandma Marie's, where someone would actually ask about my day. Grandma was the one who ignited my love for vintage jewelry. She had this incredible collection of costume pieces, and she'd let me organize and catalog them. I guess I should have seen it as prophetic. The worst part wasn't even the blatant favoritism. It was the way they rewrote history to justify it. Rachel just needs more attention. She had such a rough start. Sarah's always been so independent. Sarah understands her sister has special needs. No, I did not understand. I was a child who couldn't grasp why having a healthy immune system made me less deserving of love. Looking back, those years shaped me. That persistent message that I was somehow unsafe and inconvenience, it doesn't just disappear. But hey, it taught me self-sufficiency. When no one's checking your homework or celebrating your triumphs, you learn to be your own cheerleader. High school. Most people either loved it or hated it. For me, it was my ticket out. While Rachel was establishing her drama empire in middle school, I was laying the groundwork for my escape. And let me tell you, nothing motivates you like knowing no one else will do it for you. Remember those hours sorting Grandma Marie's jewelry? That taught me systematic organization, attention to detail. I approached everything in high school with that same mindset. My desk looked like something out of a magazine. Color-coded notes, meticulous study plans. Rachel would tease me, call me Raymond. So original, sis. But here's the thing about being invisible. No one's watching your failures or your successes. So you can do whatever the heck you want. I joined every club that didn't interfere with my part-time job at Carson's Diner. Shout out to Carol, the owner, for remembering my birthday when my own parents forgot. Debate team? Check. National Honor Society president? Check. Editor-in-chief of the school newspaper? Check. The debate team was where I truly found my voice. There's something so satisfying about dismantling someone's argument with calm precision. It also taught me negotiation skills, which I didn't realize at the time, but oh boy, would they come in handy. I won states twice. Both times my parents couldn't attend because Rachel had major soccer games. She was on the C team. Didn't even play. Junior year. That's when things really got interesting. I took the SATs. Perfect score. Not pretty good. Perfect. A 1,600. Do you know how few people get that? Less than 1%. I stared at the screen for 20 minutes, convinced it was a mistake. I rushed home to tell my parents. Even then, I knew it was stupid. Mom was in the kitchen, helping Rachel with her English homework. Mom, look, I got a perfect SAT score. That's nice, honey, but can you keep it down? Rachel's trying to concentrate. Big test tomorrow. Rachel chimed in. Yeah, some of us actually have to study Miss Perfect. Mom, without missing a beat. Rachel, sweetie, don't stress. You're just a different kind of learner. I still have a hard copy of those SAT results somewhere. Never made it onto the fridge. But Rachel's C+ in English? That got prime refrigerator real estate. Complete with a "we're so proud of you" magnet. College applications. That whole process was fascinating. I applied to 15 schools, without telling anyone, wrote all my own essays, gathered my own recommendations, handled all the financial aid paperwork myself. My guidance counselor, Mr. Chen, was a true MVP. My parents were too busy to help with the FAFSA, so I stayed late at school. Then the acceptances started rolling in. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan, each one a scholarship offer. I kept them all in a locked box under my bed. I knew what would happen if Rachel found out. Their focus would shift entirely to her. But if Sarah goes to Harvard, I'll be all alone. Or some nonsense. The day I got my full ride offer from UMich, Rachel joined JV cheerleading. Guess which one was celebrated with a family feast? Hint. I had microwave mac and cheese in my room while they went to Olive Garden. But that scholarship? That was my golden ticket. Tuition, room, board, book allowance, all covered. I could finally leave. Leave that house where I was either invisible or inconvenient. The day that acceptance package arrived, I went to my favorite spot in the local library, a fourth-floor window seat overlooking the park. And I cried for an hour. Not sad tears. Tears of pure, unadulterated relief. When I told my parents at dinner that I was going to UMich, their faces fell. Michigan? But that's so far. What if Rachel needs you? Mom said, I hope you're not expecting us to help with expenses, Dad added. Rachel's cheerleading competitions are very costly. Then Rachel piped up, fake crying, Oh my God! Finally, can I have your room? I need space for my TikTok videos. The summer before college, I worked double shifts at Carson's Diner, saving every penny. Carol, bless her heart, always slipped me extra tips and made sure I took home leftover pie. She also taught me a vital skill, how to spot genuine people in a world full of fakes. Baby, she'd say, in diners and in life, the ones making the most noise usually have the least to say. Move-in day at UMich. My parents couldn't make it. Surprise! Rachel had a cheerleading competition. Aunt Kelly drove me instead, helped me set up my dorm room, handed me a crisp $500 in an envelope. Your Grandma Marie wanted you to have this, she whispered. She's so proud of you. Later, I learned Grandma had saved that money from her Social Security checks for months. That first night in my own dorm room, I made a promise to myself. I was going to build such an incredible life that being overlooked would be inconceivable. Not for vengeance, not to prove anything to them, but for that 8-year-old girl who kept getting sent to grandma's for sneezing. College flew by in a blur of all-nighters, instant ramen, and glorious heavenly independence. I graduated summa cum laude from the University of Michigan. Not that my parents noticed. They were too busy helping Rachel transfer to her third college in 2 years. But this is where the plot takes a sharp turn. I landed an entry-level job at Everett and Phillips, an auction house in Detroit. Not the real name, but if you're in the business, you know who I'm talking about. A high-end establishment, old money clients, that kind of place. I started in estate sales, documenting belongings of wealthy individuals after their deaths. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills. My first few months were standard, logging countless china sets, cataloging vintage furniture. Then came the Kingston estate. Mrs. Kingston, an elderly widow, had died childless, leaving behind what everyone assumed was a massive collection of costume jewelry. Rooms of it. This is where those hours at Grandma Marie's paid off. I was sifting through a pile of jewelry when something caught my eye. An Art Deco brooch. Nothing flashy, but something about it felt different. The weight was wrong for costume jewelry. The clasp mechanism was far too intricate for a copycat. I think I spent my entire lunch break that day researching old jewelry markers and signatures. I stayed late at the office, using the company's membership to antique jewelry databases. The more I looked, the more certain I became. This wasn't costume. It was the real deal. The problem? I was the new girl. Nobody would believe me if I claimed we had a potential treasure on our hands. So I did what the debate team taught me. I meticulously prepared my argument. For 2 weeks, during lunch breaks and evenings, I immersed myself in Art Deco jewelry authentication. I even spent some of my pitiful savings on an online gemology course. Finally, I mustered the guts to approach my boss, Mr. Harrison. I brought the entire presentation. Comparative images, historical documentation, the works. Sir, I think we might have something significant in the Kingston collection. Harrison barely looked up from his phone. Sarah, we've already cataloged those as costume pieces. I know, but look at these makers' marks. They match perfectly with Cartier's 1925 signatures. Harrison finally paid attention. He looked up. Where did you learn all of this? I did some research. Long story short, that costume brooch sold for $47,000 at auction. Turns out, it was part of a limited collection made for European royalty in the 1920s. But here's the real kicker. Harrison started to trust me. He began giving me other artifacts to authenticate. Suddenly, my pointless pastime of sorting antique jewels had real significance. I devoured everything I could about vintage jewelry. every online course I could afford, weekends spent at estate sales, researching pieces. I even started a small notebook documenting authentication procedures. My apartment became a jewelry scholar's fever dream. Walls covered in printouts of vintage hallmarks and certification guidelines. The auction house started seeing results. I was unearthing important pieces others had overlooked, developing contacts with collectors, understanding the market. My commission checks got bigger. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was saving money. My family? Still remarkably uninterested. At Sunday dinners, which I still went to like a fool, the conversation usually went like this. Mom, Sarah's still at that antique shop, right? Me. Actually, it's an auction house, and yes, I just authenticated a rare Tiffany piece. Rachel interrupting. Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you guys have to see this charm bracelet I bought at the mall. But I didn't care anymore. For once, I'd found something wholly mine, something I was truly excellent at, something completely unrelated to being Rachel's sister. Then came the Rothschild collection. This was about 2 years into my employment. A massive estate, old money. The industry was buzzing. I was part of the team cataloging their jewelry, and that's when I saw it, a fairly unassuming Art Nouveau piece that everyone else had dismissed. I spent 3 days on it, barely slept. It turned out to be a piece from a famous French jeweler's private collection, believed lost during World War II. It sold at auction for $238,000. Harrison called me into his office. I thought I was getting a promotion. Instead, he said something that completely changed everything. Sarah, you're wasting your talent here. You should be running your own authentication business. Initially, I shrugged it off. Me? Start a business? With what money? But the idea took root. I started doing small freelance authentication projects on the side. Word spread. She has an uncanny eye for finding missed pieces. Private collectors started calling directly. One night, sitting in my tiny apartment, surrounded by jewelry manuals and tools I'd slowly accumulated, I had an epiphany. This was it. I could actually do this. I could build something entirely on my own. So, I did what any reasonable person would do. I took out a substantial loan against my car, emptied my savings account, rented a small office space in a less than desirable area of town. People probably thought I was insane. Maybe I was. I converted a storage room above a Chinese restaurant. It was the size of a college dorm. The rent was low because it always smelled like kung pao chicken, and the Wi-Fi only worked if you sat in the corner by the window. But it was mine. The first few months were interesting, and by interesting I mean terrifying. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. in cold sweats, calculating how many months until my savings ran out. Loan payments felt like a rope around my neck. My office furniture consisted of a card table from Goodwill and a chair I literally found on the curb. Don't worry, it was thoroughly disinfected. However, in the world of high-end jewelry, reputation and contacts are everything. My experience at the auction house gave me both. I started small, doing authentication work for local antique dealers. My fees were lower than the big firms, but my attention to detail became known. Word spread. 6 months later, a watershed moment. A dealer I'd worked with at the auction house asked about a collection of Victorian-era brooches. The owner wanted verification before selling. It turned out to be a massive collection, pieces from 3 generations. I worked on it for 2 straight weeks, barely sleeping, documenting everything. I discovered 2 extremely rare pieces that had been misidentified as later replicas. The owner was so thrilled with my analysis that she not only paid my fee, but offered me a 10% commission when the pieces sold. That commission? $86,000. More money than I'd earned in the previous 2 years combined. Suddenly my phone rang. A lot. Private collectors heard about my knack for finding missed pieces. Estate lawyers sought my advice on inherited jewelry. Even my previous auction house started sending me authentication work. I'm pretty sure Harrison was secretly helping spread the word. Thanks, boss. By year 2, I'd hired my first employee, Jenny, a fresh gemology graduate who reminded me too much of myself at that age. Brilliant, but overlooked because she was quiet. She's now my head of authentication and worth her weight in gold. The company grew faster than I could have predicted. We moved to a proper office downtown. Goodbye, Kung Pao chicken smell. We built a team of specialists. We earned a reputation for finding forgotten treasures. You wouldn't believe how many historically significant jewels are sitting in people's attics, mislabeled as costume jewelry. But success brought its own challenges. The bigger we got, the harder it became to keep it a secret from my family. They still thought I worked in an antique shop. Rachel would make these cutting remarks at family dinners. Rachel, Sarah, I have some old jewelry I was going to donate to Goodwill. Maybe your little shop would want it. Me, having just authenticated a $1.2 million Faberge item that morning. Sure, I'll take a look. Mom would introduce me to everyone. This is my other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something. Meanwhile, I was being quoted in Forbes under my company's name. We just opened our 3rd office. What's funny is, keeping the secret became almost enjoyable. Like a private joke I shared only with myself. I'd sit at Sunday dinner in my Target discount outfit, really Chanel, listening to Rachel ramble about her entry-level marketing job, knowing I'd just closed a deal for more than her annual salary. I even started playing little games with myself, like wearing authentic Harry Winston pieces to family gatherings and seeing if anyone noticed. They never did. Rachel once spent 20 minutes showing off her expensive $200 Michael Kors watch. I was wearing a vintage Patek Philippe that cost more than her car. Managing growth, however, was the real challenge. By year 5, we had offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. I spent more time on planes than in my own bed. We built a reputation for discretion. Turns out, a lot of wealthy people want their jewels verified without the world knowing. The money was enormous. We had to hire a full team of financial advisors. Yet I maintained a relatively modest lifestyle. I bought a nice, but not flashy, house in a good neighborhood. Drove a high-end, but not ostentatious car. The only place I truly splurged was my home office. Advanced authentication equipment. The most effective security system money could buy. A custom-built vault that would make Fort Knox jealous. The irony? My family thought I was being frugal to help them. Mom would say things like, "It's so sweet of Sarah to help out. She must be eating nothing but ramen to manage it." Meanwhile, I had just validated a collection that earned me a commission greater than their mortgage. You know what's strange about success? The more you have, the harder it is to explain to people who have always seen you as inferior. It's like trying to describe color to someone who has only seen black and white. They simply lack the context. But by this stage, my company was thriving. We had the high-end jewelry authentication industry in the Midwest cornered. Our reputation was solid gold, pun intended. Still, every Sunday, I'd go to my parents' house for dinner, playing Sarah, the modest antique shop worker. The cognitive dissonance was becoming ludicrous. My mornings were spent on conference calls with collectors in Dubai, my afternoons authenticating million-dollar pieces, and my evenings at my parents' house, in carefully chosen normal clothes, eating Mom's overcooked pot roast, while Rachel monopolized the conversation with stories about her latest marketing triumph, usually something about bringing her boss coffee without spilling it. One Sunday stands out vividly in my mind. I just closed a huge deal, authenticating a missing Cartier piece that had been sitting in someone's safe deposit box for 40 years. The commission? 7 figures. I drove straight from the meeting to my parents' place, still high from the success. "Sarah, honey, is everything okay? Your clothes are looking a bit worn." "Oh, just trying to save money," I said, wearing a $3,000 cashmere sweater I'd purposefully chosen for its subtle appearance. "Rachel," ever the opportunist, "well, if you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with old jewelry." "Dad, Rachel, be nice. Mom interjected. Not everyone can be as successful as you. I almost choked on my pot roast, trying not to laugh. Around this time, anonymous monthly payments to my parents began. Aunt Kelly had told me they were struggling with Rachel's student loans and medical bills. Mom had casually mentioned they might have to sell the house. I couldn't let that happen. Despite everything, it was still my childhood home. So I initiated an anonymous monthly transfer of $5,000 to their account. When asked, I just vaguely said I was sending $1,000 by living on rice and beans. They assumed the rest came from Aunt Kelly or another relative. Rachel, of course, took credit for inspiring family members to help. The money helped, but it also had unintended consequences. My parents started treating me with a strange mix of pity and patronizing pride, as if I were some noble poverty case, sacrificing everything to support the family. Meanwhile, Rachel's spending became more extravagant. She'd show up for dinner with new, expensive bags, claiming they were outlet finds. They weren't. I can spot a genuine Gucci at 20 paces. She started taking lavish vacations, bragging on Instagram about her blessed life. I'm pretty sure she was using my support money for shopping sprees. Yet I remained silent. The irony was just too delicious. Then came the MBA drama. Rachel announced she wanted to go back to school for her MBA. Another private university, naturally. Only the best for the golden child. Mom called me in tears, explaining they couldn't afford it. I suggested maybe Rachel could look at state schools. They have great programs, too. My mother, oh, honey, you don't understand. Your sister needs to maintain certain standards. But speaking of helping, could you increase your monthly contribution for a few years? I upped it to $7,000 a month. My accounts didn't even flinch. But watching them praise Rachel for taking initiative with her education, while assuming I was living on ramen to help out, that stung a little. The actual kicker? I was giving a guest lecture at the very same business school Rachel wanted to attend. My family had no idea. The dean himself invited me to speak on luxury, goods, authenticity, and business growth. I had to concoct an elaborate excuse as to why I couldn't make Sunday dinner that week. My own accomplishments were starting to feel like a separate life, as if I were some kind of corporate superhero with a hidden identity. By day, I ran a multi-million-dollar authentication business. By night, well, on Sunday evenings, I was just Sarah, the disappointed daughter who worked at an antique shop. The weight of the untruth was becoming heavier. Rachel made snide remarks about my career multiple times. Each time, Mom apologized to her friends for my modest lifestyle. Each time, Dad suggested I get a real job. I think I always knew it would end dramatically. I just didn't expect it to implode so spectacularly on Thanksgiving. It started 2 weeks before the holiday. Mom called, weeping about her back pain. Diagnosed with a herniated disc, the thought of cooking Thanksgiving dinner for 20 guests overwhelmed her. Now, I'd love to tell you I offered to help purely out of goodwill. But honestly, I was tired of pretending her dried-out turkey was appetizing. Why don't I handle the food this year? I suggested. I can have it catered. Oh, honey, we can't afford a caterer, she cried. Don't worry about the cost, I replied. I've been saving up. Mom, sounding concerned. You're not taking out a loan, are you? I coordinated everything with a high-end catering firm I used for business events. They do incredible work. The kind of food that makes you wonder why you ever bothered to cook yourself. It costs more than my folks thought I earned in 2 months. But whatever. Thanksgiving morning dawned, and I felt surprisingly good. I had my laptop with me because I needed to monitor a major online auction in Hong Kong. A magnificent Art Nouveau necklace was up for sale, and I had a client interested in authentication if they won the bid. The lunch arrived on schedule. Everything was perfectly prepared. Rachel, of course, had to comment. Store-bought stuffing, really, Sarah? Mom's is so much better. This from the girl who once set off the smoke alarm making toast. Mom was apologizing to everyone for not cooking herself, but you could tell they were all enjoying the meal. Rachel even shut up after tasting the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts, which, by the way, cost more per plate than her weekly grocery budget. I excused myself from dinner and dessert to check my laptop. The auction was heating up. I needed to be ready. I set up in my old bedroom, which Mom had somehow kept the same since high school. Rachel's room, meanwhile, had undergone 3 renovations. That's when everything went wrong. I'd left my authentication software running, multiple tabs open, displaying various accounts, current agreements. Rachel came in without knocking. Some things never change, to borrow my phone charger. She saw my laptop screen, and in her eyes I saw her seize the chance. This was it, her moment to finally expose how pathetic her older sister was. Rachel, smirking, "Let's show everyone what Sarah's really been up to on Thanksgiving." Before I could stop her, she grabbed my laptop, walked into the dining room. Picture this, 20 people, aunts, uncles, cousins, my parents, bellies full of gourmet turkey, half drunk on expensive wine they mistook for Trader Joe's. Rachel, triumphant, flipped the laptop around, intending to humiliate me with whatever minor, antique transaction she assumed I was working on. The room went completely silent. You could hear the fancy clock I got Mom for Christmas ticking. She thought it was a reproduction. My screen displayed current account balance, $12.4 million pending authentication contract, $485,000 recent transaction, $1.2 million Hong Kong auction company's quarterly profit report, $4.2 million. Rachel's face cycled through 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. The final one landed somewhere between astonishment and nausea. She actually swayed slightly on her feet. This cannot be right," Rachel whispered. "Rachel, honey, what is it?" Mom asked. Rachel's voice cracked. She's rich. Sarah's rich." Chaos. If it was possible, the hush deepened even further. Then Mom started to giggle. Really laugh. "Don't be silly. Sarah works at that little antique shop." I stood up slowly, carefully straightening my basic cashmere sweater, which cost more than their monthly. Mortgage payment. Yes, actually, Mom. I own one of the largest jewelry authentication companies in the country. For years, those antique shop comments, I authenticate pieces worth millions. That little business you never asked about, it has offices in 3 cities. Dad choked on his wine. Aunt Kelly dropped her fork. Uncle Bob started coughing terribly. Then Mom's giggling turned into something else. Her face went red, then purple. She stood up so fast her chair toppled over. "You have millions," Mom shrieked, "and you let us struggle." Struggle. I shot back. "I send you $7,000 every month, while sitting on millions. Your sister has student loans." There it was. Not congratulations. Not, "Wow, we're so proud." Just outrage that I hadn't given them more. Rachel started crying. Shocker, I know. Sobbing about how she deserved to know, and how I had betrayed the family. Dad joined in. "How could you be so selfish, Sarah? We're your parents. We raised you." That's when I lost it. Years of being ignored. Years of dismissal. Years of being seen as the family disappointment. Everything poured out. "Raised me. You shipped me off to Grandma's every time I sneezed. You missed every achievement, every award, every milestone, because Rachel might feel left out. You never saved a penny for my college, but took out loans for her private school. And now you're mad that I built something for myself." The next 5 minutes were pure pandemonium. Mom screamed about family obligations. Dad yelled about ungrateful children. Rachel alternated between sobbing and demanding to know just how much money I had. Meanwhile, the fancy catering team tried to serve dessert, looking profoundly uncomfortable. I grabbed my laptop, picked up my Hermes bag, which Mom had once complimented as a nice replica, and I walked out. Behind me, I could hear Mom discussing how to spend my money. Something about Rachel's MBA and a new car. As I drove home in my sensible car, a limited edition BMW, my phone started blowing up. The family group chat exploded. Rachel began posting on Facebook about hidden family wealth and selfish siblings. The days after Thanksgiving were like watching a cyclone hit in slow motion. Except the hurricane was my family and the debris was my sanity. Let's start with the texts. Within an hour of leaving dinner, I had 47 missed calls and over 200 messages. Moms went through an interesting progression. 7:42 p.m. How dare you walk out on family? 8:15 p.m. We need to talk about this like adults. 9:03 p.m. Your sister deserves a share of your success. 10:30 p.m. I've already called a realtor about houses in better neighborhoods. 11:45 p.m. Why aren't you answering? This is your mother. Rachel, on the other hand, fully embraced social media warfare. She posted an enormous rant on Facebook about how her millionaire sister had been hoarding wealth while watching her beloved family struggle. The comment section went insane. Distant cousins and former high school classmates I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had strong opinions about my moral character. But here's the part that really got me. Rachel actually posted, all those years of me trying to help Sarah's career, giving her advice about moving up from that little antique shop, and she was secretly wealthy. The betrayal stung so much I almost threw my phone. The only career advice she ever gave me was to try selling jewelry on Etsy. Then came the flying monkeys. If you're unfamiliar, that's when toxic family members send others to guilt trip you. Aunt Susan, whom I saw maybe once every 3 years, called to inform me that family is everything. Uncle Bob, who I'm pretty sure still thinks I'm 12, emailed me a lengthy lecture on the importance of sharing wealth. Even my third cousin's wife's sister, how did she get my number? Felt compelled to offer her thoughts on family obligation. But the real fun began when they showed up at my workplace. I walked in on Monday morning to find Mom, Dad, and Rachel sitting in our reception area. They'd told Jenny, my receptionist, that they had an appointment for authenticating services. Rachel clutched her Michael Kors bag like it was genuinely worth something. The conversation went about as well as one would expect. We've discussed it as a family, Mom began. A family discussion, I noted. Without the family member you're discussing. Mom ignored me. And we think it's only fair that you set up trust funds for everyone. Rachel chimed in. I need at least $2 million to start my new life properly. Dad added, and your mother and I would like to retire. We're thinking a beach house in Florida. Did you miss the part, I asked, my voice dangerously calm, where I've been sending you $7,000 monthly? That's nothing compared to what you have. Rachel cried, you owe us. I owe you? For what exactly? The years of being ignored? The missed graduations? The constant comparisons? Don't be dramatic, Sarah. We gave you everything. Mom wailed. No, I said, a steely resolve settling over me. I gave myself everything. And you know what? I'm done. Right there in my own office lobby, I took out my phone, and I canceled the monthly transfers to their account. Mom gasped as if I'd slapped her. Rachel started her phony crying performance, but quickly stopped when she saw it wasn't working. Then things turned ugly. They refused to leave. I had to call security. Seeing my 60-year-old mother being escorted out while yelling about ungrateful children was bizarre. Jenny asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, but I did have their names placed on the building's do not admit list. The harassment lasted for weeks. New phone numbers, fake email addresses. They even tried contacting me through my company's customer service. I finally had to issue a formal legal notice, threatening harassment charges. Mom then played her final card. She called Grandma Marie. But here's the thing about Grandma Marie. She's wiser than all of them put together. Her response? Good for Sarah. About time someone in this family succeeded on their own terms. Mom didn't speak to her for 2 months after that. It's been 6 months since Thanksgiving. I've moved to a new home with better security. I've changed all my numbers. The company, we're doing better than ever. Turns out, my family drama attracted several high-profile clients who appreciated my caution in the circumstances. Rachel continues to post passive-aggressive updates about toxic wealth and family betrayal. According to what I've heard, she's starting her own jewelry authentication firm. Good luck with that. Mom and Dad finally stopped trying to contact me when my lawyer wrote them an official letter outlining how harassment charges would affect their lives. They're now telling everyone they never wanted my money anyway and are praying for my salvation. What's the best part? For the first time in my life, I feel truly liberated. No more Sunday dinners full of sly insults. No more downplaying my accomplishments to spare their feelings. No longer financing the Rachel show. My therapist thinks I'm finally establishing healthy boundaries. I say I'm finally living authentically. So that's my story. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family who just wouldn't see you? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I share stories like this every week, and your support helps keep this channel going.